Do you think that being homeless and everything you went through and being in the military and then moving to a different country, do you think all of these things are a part of why you are that way and why you're so self-confident and just kind of...
Yeah.
Because it seems like you're kind of stepping out of the mainstream a bit.
Yeah, I think they do have to do with it. And the reason is because kind of like what we started with, how easy it is to start over. And also like if you've already experienced something, your fear of that thing is a lot lower. Like I've already managed that. I've already gone through it. I've already handled that. So I know that if it does happen again, then I can do it again. So for people that, they don't want to risk their job because like, then what if I can't find another one? What if I'm homeless? Because like, that's a big unknown, right? Facing the unknown is a lot harder and more difficult than facing things you've already done before, right? So I think that has a lot to do with it. Like what's the worst case scenario? Like I've already kind of done all that.
There's an interesting value in that, in this lesson, which is to just try things out, dude. You know how many people don't try things out and we stop ourselves all the time? People are like, I'm going to go to do pottery, and then they're like, I didn't kind of like it. Maybe no, it's okay. You just tried it out. At least you tried it out. Most people don't try anything out and they're just in their mind already rejecting their own ideas.
I would never take advice from someone about something that they're not better than me at. If someone's better than me at something, then I'll definitely listen to what they have to say about that subject. Now, if they're better than me at one thing, thing A, I'm not going to listen to them on thing B. Like it's just, unless they're better than me at that too, which is totally possible and likely.
Welcome, guys, to the Kotodama Podcast, and welcome back to everyone who's watching now for a while, maybe. Let's see. And today, my guest is Ian Daly. He is an entrepreneur of multiple businesses. He's a veteran. He's a musician, a songwriter. He's an attorney. And he also used to be homeless. So I think this is, we're going to have such a cool conversation today. Thank you so much for joining me, Ian.
Thank you for having me, Janam. It's great to talk to you.
Yay, I'm so excited. We had a conversation yesterday, obviously, and I just think you have such an amazing story. You actually reached out to me, which is so cool. I feel that's a sign of success. I'll take it as a big compliment, And I'm always on the lookout for people who have really interesting stories to tell, and that's like one thing of my podcast that I'm kind of proud of, is that I'm very open for all types of people. And obviously I had an entrepreneurs on before, but I think your story really is super unique, and I can't wait to dive into it. You're actually right now, tell the people where you are right now.
So I'm based in Atami, Japan, which is a little beach town about, depending on how you get there, it's 40 minutes on the Shinkansen. It's about 2 hours if you take the slow train or try to drive. It's known for the onsens and the scenic beach view, and really like driving down the coast is a lot of fun. You can go all the way down to Shimoda. There's a lot of really beautiful scenery and also nature. It's a great place to go hiking, or it's kind of close to Hakone too. We went there last weekend. It's about 30-minute drive, and I really recommend, if you haven't been to Atami, you definitely have to come out.
Yeah, I have never been. I've been to Hakone though, actually, and I think Hakone was actually much more. It made me nauseous, to be in the car and like drive up the mountain, and like I was like, oh my god, this is like. I was actually a bit, but it was a rainy day. Yeah, it was a weird one, but I have to go again because I didn't go there for onsen, which what the hell. But yeah, Ian, so for everyone who doesn't know you, you have multiple businesses. Okay, you used to be homeless. You did so many things in your life. And when we talked yesterday, something that you said really stuck with me, which is that you talked about starting over, that you just kind of are used to starting over, or you just like starting over, you know how to start over. And that's something I can really relate to. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So I think my life experience has taught me that starting over is not only possible, but it's oftentimes um, a better path. It can be easier than trying to continue on with something that's broken. And I feel like a lot of people feel trapped in a situation and they don't know that that's even an option. I feel like a lot of our social conditioning is built around kind of preserving what is, and rather than, starting something new. So I've moved a ton of times in my life, about probably about 30 times total, at least 20 um, before I graduated high school. And, that experience, having to go to new schools, meet new friends, make new friends, say goodbye to the old ones, was definitely formative for me. It taught me that, you know, places can change, but people, there's always a wide variety of people wherever you go. And you can always find people that you connect with and that um, you can resonate with. And that's kind of been my philosophy throughout my life, and it's been a big part of my entrepreneurial journey, which is, a lot of times people feel stuck in their industry or with their experience professionally, but you can change all that. You can go to a new industry, you can go to a new country even. And so that is a lesson that I learned. I think along with that, I it's not that you always have to start over, right? It's not always the best choice. A lot of times it is worth it to stick it out and get through the hard parts, because the rewards on the other side are worth it. And so I think for some people, especially foreigners looking at coming to Japan, um, you know, I would say, like, consider the possibility that not every part of your life has to be a reset. Not all of it has to start over. That you can keep continuity, and that's kind of actually um, what led me to my current business, my latest startup or early stage venture, which is Keizoku, which is um, a platform for small business or small M&A advisors to help small business owners to preserve their legacy. In Japan, there's a huge number, like over 3 million small businesses that are facing a succession crisis over the next 10 years or so. And so solving that has kind of been a motivation for me. But I actually came to uh, that, that continuance, which is the meaning of the name, when I was looking at businesses to acquire in Japan. And so that's kind of what I'm saying about not everything has to start over. I think for some people, especially before this month when the business manager visa rules changed, they were considering coming to Japan to start a business. But like with so many businesses needing succession, I would actually recommend you try to find a business that you can take over, um, rather than starting
Yeah.
from scratch. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of, you mentioned that yesterday, and I was like, wait, so, okay, wait. So you, yes, so you're saying basically, instead of just creating your own business, what if you just acquire another one? How is someone supposed to do that if they have limited resources? Do you have any
Yeah.
tips on that? Or is this only a tip for the rich?
No, no, not at all. I mean, there's businesses of all sizes. And actually, if you are resource limited, then you're kind of probably going to be looking at the types of businesses that need your help the most. Um, Now, in the US, I could give you any number of recommendations on how to acquire a business with very little resources. In Japan, it's a little bit different. They don't really do things like seller financing. Um, so like there's not really a earn out option for the existing owner. They really want kind of a one and done transaction. But again, there's always exceptions to that. And there's a lot of businesses that just need help. And so it might be a situation where you can come in if you have experience or skills in a certain area that that business needs help with, that you can kind of earn your way into an ownership position, even if it's a minority position. So I I think there are options if you're resource limited, and specifically you're going to be helping the businesses that need the most. So if you think about kind of like the mom and pop ramen shops or retail stores or small ryokans, those are the ones that don't have the the benefit or advantage of being able to work with an M&A advisor, because frankly their business isn't large enough for the fees to be worth it for the advisor. Um, so there's a number of resources that exist out there for that. We're trying to assist with that. Our focus is on kind of helping the advisors be more productive so they can bring down that bar and help more businesses at a lower size and valuation. But there's definitely options. So I would say,
Okay.
keep your eye out, because we're really focused on making it more accessible to foreigners. So like our platform, I think, is one of the first English native bilingual platforms. There are a couple others out there that are very early stages. And there's also like resources on LinkedIn, for example. I know a few M&A brokers who are advertising businesses in English. And so I think there's kind of two levels to that kind of resource limitation, right? There's the financial resources, and then there's that linguistic and cultural resources. Both are solvable, and
Yeah.
you just have to be creative and push for it.
Yeah. And I mean, you have many different kinds of businesses, right? And you're originally from Utah. And so can you kind of walk us through your life, how you ended up from Utah to homelessness to uh, studying law or dropping out of high school? That's another thing I want to talk to you about. You dropped out of high school. I want to have that conversation with you. Then you, yeah, walk us through how you ended up in Japan now, basically, as a CEO and a founder and doing all this amazing stuff. And yeah.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, interesting story mine, but I was born in Utah. I went to kindergarten there, but about like halfway through kindergarten, we moved to California. Um, and I averaged, I think, about one move a year between kindergarten and the end of high school. The I the longest stretch was, I think, like 3 or 4 years in Spokane and Connecticut. Um, so kind of with that, constantly moving. Um, by the time I got to my last year in high school, I was in a new high school in a new state, and they had a completely different set of graduation requirements than the school that I had left. And at the same time, this is the time of life when you're getting a lot of pressure and hearing from your teachers and advisors and parents that if you don't do good in high school, you're not going to get into a good college, you're not going to have a good job, and your life's going to suck. Like that was just like the whole narrative that's being pumped at you at in that age. And I just felt like I didn't even have the chance to do well in high school, because because of just being dislocated so frequently, that I was like, I'm just gonna call that bluff. Um and so about halfway through my senior year in high school, I just dropped out because there was like a large senior project that we were supposed to do that I came into essentially halfway through with no progress, and it didn't make sense for me to keep going. And then from there, I actually started going to community college um, without even graduating high school. And I don't think a lot of people at that time really knew you could do that. So I used teaching myself and kind of just advancing on my own path. I also kind of went back to high school through adult school about a year later. But at the same time, then my parents moved again. At this stage of my life, I was not really gonna go with them. I had
Yeah.
enough invested in what I was trying to do, and I was recording bands as like a independent producer and studio engineer. Kind of built my own home studio that I was taking over to my friend's house to record their bands and stuff, and playing a lot of concerts. And so I did not want to go and start over when I felt like I had kind of built a little bit of community and traction, and it was just another start over.
Yeah.
So I stayed in California. My parents moved back to Utah. They actually didn't last there that long. They lasted, I think, maybe 2 years, and then they moved back to California. But while I was in California, I lived with a friend, um, and we had a couple roommates, and there was like a disagreement among the roommates, and I was kind of the new guy, so low man on the totem pole. And basically, about like 2 months after my parents left California, I ended up being homeless, and I had a job that I had lost like right before my roommates kicked me out, so didn't have a way to really live anywhere. And so I was like couch surfing on my friends' couches. I'd stay out all night in places like hanging out at Walmart and other 24-hour,
What?
Denny's. Yeah, just
Stop, really?
to be somewhere. um,
So you
yeah.
mentioned as well that like during that time you also, I mean, first of all, who is that stupid like housemate who just kicks you out with like no plan B? That's so crazy and cruel. And then, I mean, I guess you mentioned yesterday that it was like a little bit of a fight or whatever, conflict, but I mean, it's like that's really cruel. And then, but so can you tell us a little bit more about that in your life, that era of your life? Because I think most people don't know that I think everyone can end up in a situation like this. And, I heard of people couch surfing before because they were homeless, not as a cool little thing to do, alternative thing to do, but literally because they didn't have a place. I heard about that before. But so you kind of it sounds like you found your way around, like kind of, okay, I just stay at Walmart, whatever, some place that is open for 24 hours. I just stay awake or something. Like, can you tell some of those things that you did, and also like sleeping under the bridge kind of thing?
Yeah, so it was it was a long time ago, but uh, I would spend, my time anywhere I could. I would spend a lot of time we had practice rooms with like pianos, and I would bring my guitar over there at the community college and hang out there, then go to, like a diner and kind of just bounce around places until I could find somewhere to sleep. And if I could find somewhere to sleep, most nights I did end up finding somewhere to sleep, but there was definitely, you know, more than a few where I didn't. And, it that was is I don't know how to describe it other than like like not really desperate, but like disconsolate, in that, you know, it was like a resignation. Just like, yeah, it is what it is. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, there's not like I didn't really know what else to do to fight it. So that lasted for a few months, but I ended up spending a lot of time, for example, at my friend Sean's house. His parents were kind of the cool parents, and they had a band, and so like I was recording their band's album, and they let me stay with them for a while. um and I was welcome, but at the same time, like I definitely maximized my welcome. I wouldn't say I was, taking advantage, but I definitely took what I could get at that point.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, I guess like everyone in your situation would have like done the same, right? I mean, most people don't know how that feels like, but I think your story kind of also shows how I mean, we talked about starting over. That's like a theme, I think, throughout your life, it seems like. And like in my life as well, I think that's a theme. Like I am actually good at starting over. I'm not that afraid of starting over. Um, but it's always, there's always a risk involved. And I think your story is it creates, I think, so much hope for maybe people who are listening because, it doesn't matter where you are or what kind of background you have. I mean, if you work hard enough, and you believe in yourself, and I guess, you know, I mean, also connections, as you said, like someone who believes in you, someone who helps you out. Obviously, I don't know, people can call it luck. I don't really believe in luck. I believe more in like, I guess, blessings or things that happen synchronistically. But that you got yourself out of that situation. Would you say, I mean, sorry, I have like questions written down. I'm completely going off the rails right now, but would you would you say that what is the biggest reason you think for your success? Like how you got out of the homelessness situation and, whatever, dropping out of high school and like not complying to the system. And then now being someone who kind of looking, from a mainstream perspective, now if someone looks at you, they can see you're a success, whatever that means. So what do you think was the biggest reason for you to get out of that? Was that your own strength? Was it the people you've met? Was it luck? What do you think it was?
Is in part of it was a combination of things, but I think probably the most important thing was that from the beginning, I kind of had my own path and goal in mind. And then it was just, making whatever progress I could towards that. So ironically, when my parents moved away and I didn't want to start over, circumstances basically forced me to anyway with the homelessness. I moved up to Northern California with my grandparents, and I worked with my grandfather doing construction. Um, and it was like a small town, and I wasn't really doing much beyond work. I wasn't. I played some, open mics in the area, but I wasn't getting a lot of personal fulfillment or growth beyond that. And so, I from there I kind of planned my next step. I was like, how am I going to get where I want to be? Um, and for me, that the path that made the most sense was the Marine Corps, and I could have gone to any other branch, but I guess I appreciate a challenge. And so I just wanted to do the hardest thing I could, um, because I felt like I'd already done hard things. And so, it couldn't be worse than that.
Yeah, I mean, like many people, they don't talk about how the military for many people is like the last hope, kind of. I mean, I have heard in my personal life, I know some people as well who kind of went there because they had nowhere else to go or because they kind of were lost in the system of like, no, like they couldn't get into university for some reason or they couldn't study or they dropped out of school. So I heard these stories before. Would you think that the military for you, I mean, now looking back, do you think that was the right choice for you?
Yeah. It was a great opportunity for me to have like a reset, a start over, but with a lot more support. So getting a paycheck, having people around with similar kind of uh, values and tenacity. The Marine Corps specifically attracts just like a certain character of person. Not really known for giving up or quitting or backing down. So it definitely had that effect where I was with a lot more people that um, approached life the way I did. And then at the same time, having kind of like a full time job, so to speak, where it's like a lot more than a job, right? You're like up at 4:30 in the morning, you go and run, and then you go to work, and everything's kind of regimented, and like even like cleaning the barracks room is on a schedule, and highly supervised, and it's like a big source of camaraderie that you're doing all these things together with these fellow Marines, um and that's actually what introduced me to Japan. So that was my first duty station in the Marine Corps, was Okinawa. And I think I had a different and I didn't want to go to Okinawa. I actually requested to go to California, to Camp Pendleton, but I guess not a lot of Marines on their first duty station request to go to Okinawa, because after you've been through like boot camp and you've been in your job training, um, then you really just want to go somewhere where you can like relax a little bit, maybe have some fun. And Camp Pendleton was great. I was there for like combat training, and we would go up to Hollywood on the weekends, and go clubbing and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. And so after the job training, you request where you want to go, and it's probably about 60 to 70% people get what they request, but that other 30% basically are the ones that get sent to Okinawa. and and in hindsight, though, I wouldn't have it any other way. It was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. And I think I also had a little different of an experience in Okinawa than other people in my situation. So being a junior Marine in your first duty station, Okinawa is basically like prison.
What? Really?
Yeah. It's like very highly restricted. Like they have this 2-tiered liberty system where you have different colored cards. The gold card is like your free pass. You get to go wherever you want, come and go as you please. And if you have a red card, which is what everyone gets when they first get to the island, at least as a junior Marine, then you have to like go out. You have to sign out with a buddy. You have to come back with them. You can't stay out past midnight. And then at the same time, the transportation is highly limited. So back then, the exchange rate was not as good. We actually got like a little bump in our pay to compensate for it. But even then, it was like the exchange rate was about half of what it is now. So it was actually below that. It was like 75 to 80 yen to a dollar, compared to like
Wow.
150, 160 now. And but the taxi prices were the same, and the dollar was, you know, was like, it was just like a lot more
Weaker.
expensive relatively,
Yeah.
um, being an American in Japan.
That's crazy though. What I just want to interject there is that you basically got out of homelessness where there's like no structure in your life to all of a sudden in this like highly structured, everything's planned out. Someone else decides basically your whole day for you, like the military, you know? And then it's
Yeah,
specifically, as you say, in Okinawa, where it felt a bit like a prison because like everything was so regiment, like I don't know what the English word is, but you know, the regimented way of like,
regimented. Yeah,
yeah, this card you can do this, but with this card you can't do that, you know? Like it sounds incredibly, wow, like the polarization of that, like the gap between where you've been before and then like, can you talk about how was that like a shock to the system or like, sorry, I have so many things I want to
yeah.
ask you, but
No, I think that was actually kind of intentional. That was part of my plan, which was, you know, I had spent a lot of my time rejecting a lot of the system, so to speak, or like the
yeah.
normal operating procedure for most people. So I kind of wanted like a crash course in like being highly disciplined and highly regimented, and just kind of to develop that skill set for myself, so that afterwards, I never planned on making the military a career. It was always going to be. Now, I definitely had thoughts later on, towards the end of my enlistment, where I was like, maybe I'll stay in. But that to me seemed like the easy way at that point. and
Yeah.
because it was something I was already used to and familiar with. So that's why I decided ultimately, like, no, I got to try something new. But to be able to develop and carry that skill set with me of having the discipline and the ability to, you know, very systematically approach a problem or situation, and then have that motivation and discipline to follow through. Um, it's something I kind of already had internally, but I wanted to experience that in like that focused environment. So it was intentional.
Yeah.
So it was not a big shock to me. And at the same time, I think I did a good job making the best of that situation. So whereas other Marines were, with the red card and they couldn't go anywhere, I kind of found the loopholes, which was if you took college courses, specifically because I was on a base that didn't really have a lot of college courses. So if I took a college course that was, they would pay for free, full tuition assistance, um, then I would have to go off base by myself, and I would have to be able to kind of come and go as I please. So they had to give me the gold card. They had to let me buy a car, and drive and have the driving privileges, because they were actively encouraging the young Marines to do that. Because frankly, most of the junior Marines, if you weren't taking college classes, then you would just be like out drinking every night. And not that I didn't do my fair share of drinking, I sure did. Um, but I also got the chance to go and like perform concerts all over the island. I had a band, like we won the on base talent competition that they had, um, and recorded a ton of music with a bunch of other musicians, and kind of mentored some of those young musicians, and they're like active now today. Um, so I had a very different experience because you know, I made the most of the situation, which
Yes.
anyone who's been homeless can tell you that's kind of what you have to do.
Yeah, but it sounds like even then, because like I wanted to ask you how you got into this. Like obviously this, we're now following you along your life, right? The listeners and everyone who's watching from like the beginning of like Utah, right, to all of these steps. But like I feel like you have this natural way of being a leader. Like it's just who you are. I mean, you're just someone who, and by leader, I don't mean like you're telling other people what to do, but I mean like it's this natural entrepreneurial mindset. I always cringe a bit at the word entrepreneur because I feel like it's overused, but you do have that. It's like, even in the in Okinawa, then, you then do the studying, and then you kind of I think you got into a position where you were kind of in a manager position, right? From what I understood
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah, so I was the training and readiness manager for a company of 250 Marines, and what that meant was I was basically responsible for making sure everybody did all their annual and periodic training. So everything from the physical fitness test, the combat fitness test, the rifle range, the pistol range, and then also kind of those broader HR, sexual harassment type courses. I was the administrator for that company, and then within our battalion, which was comprised of 4 companies, I made sure we were always at the top of their list as far as our completion numbers, because I was, our officers and staff NCOs, that was kind of their thing, is like we wanted to be the best. So I made sure we were. I ended up training the battalion training and readiness officer when they changed over. Stayed in that position. It was supposed to be a 6-month assignment. I was in that position for about a year and a half, because they just were like, this guy's crushing it, so let's just let him keep doing it.
Yeah, and then yeah, so it's just kind of who you are. And I feel like so then you after the Okinawa, right? Like what happened then? How did you end up now back in Japan? Because I think you left Japan after that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I spent 2 years in Japan. I left right after kind of the Fukuoka earthquake and tsunami. Not related to it. It was just that's
You
when
mean
my time
Fukushima?
happened to be up.
I was
Yeah,
like,
that's what. Yes,
Fukuoka.
yeah. Sorry. Yeah, Fukushima.
Yeah.
I was thinking like, what is the other name for it? The Tohoku earthquake?
Tohoku. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I mix those two up. So yeah, right after the Fukushima earthquake and tsunami, we had some of the Marines from my unit went and supported that, the cleanup effort and all that. Um, but I was kind of already on my way out when that happened. And so from there, I went back to Camp Pendleton for my last year, little over a year in service. And I kept going to college classes. I actually accumulated a good number of credits and was able to transfer into USC. And I actually got um, out a couple months early from my Marine Corps contract to be able to make it to the beginning of the semester at USC. Um, and so that was kind of another loophole for me, which was if I get into a good school, they're gonna cut me loose early. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so I went to USC. Um, I had a great time there. Spent 2 years. Um, Loved going to the football games. Actually joined a fraternity. Really had a great time, and went to UCLA for law school right after that.
Guys,
And
this is
then
so crazy, right? It's like you're a genius, right? Like, you have a very high IQ, probably, whatever that means, genius. I think people can be geniuses in many ways, but you are like you have a very special mind, okay? Like the way you think, and then you explain to everyone why you wanted to study law.
yeah, so when I went into law school, I really had, I'd say, close to zero intention of being like a practicing attorney or working for a law firm or climbing that corporate ladder, so to speak, or the paper chase, as some may call it. Um, my whole intention was just kind of trying to give myself this tool set that I saw as valuable for navigating kind of the most treacherous areas of of life. Like, if you get into legal trouble, it's just that's so overwhelming for so many people. And so I wanted to be able to avoid that by having like a really in-depth understanding of kind of managing those kinds of risks. And so, yeah, I went into it thinking mostly that, like, as I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I wanted to start my own businesses um and to do things that I thought was interesting. And I thought that this would kind of be a good differentiating skill set that I could have that would let me do a lot more on my own. So I could set up my own corporations. I can handle all the legal and documentation, contracts, negotiations. Um, and that was kind of my thought going into it. And it didn't really change throughout um, my time in law school. I actually started my first business my last year in law school. I was able to get, 5 other UCLA law students to help me like get this thing up and running. It didn't actually work out because it was just capital limited. It was actually a ready to drink cocktail that, if you've been in the US in the last, I don't know, 8 years or so, like the Trulies and White Claws kind of have taken over. And
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah,
product
yeah.
was basically the predecessor to those. Um,
Wow. Look at that. You have this. I mean, oh God, I have to, it's so deep. There's so much. Just like I asked you yesterday, because I'm so fascinated how your mind works, okay? Because this is crazy, okay? Do you hear that often? Because, like, with some people I mean, to study law at UCLA, I mean, it's genius, but okay, to have a toolkit, not to specifically use the law degree in a way that people think you have to use it after getting that degree. And it's a lot of work and studying that you put in. That's just so unique. And I asked you yesterday, and I'll ask you again so people can hear, but what's the most when you talk about this product, right? What you just said, this like ready to use cocktail, like you have started so many different businesses or taken over other businesses, I guess, like including the cannabis industry. Like we have to
Mhm.
talk about that too. But it's so many different products and services. So I asked you yesterday, and I'll ask you again, what's the most fun part for you? Like, why do you do that? What's the driving force?
Most, 99% of the time, the driving force is to create something that I wish existed. And so, like with the ready to drink cocktail, I would have friends over and I would always make them this Tom Collins cocktail. And this, not a lot of people knew about it. And I was able to really perfect the recipe. And I was like, this is a great thing. I just wish I could have it in a can and open it up and drink it on the beach. And it just didn't exist at all. And the only kind of things that even existed in the US at that time, at least, that were anywhere close to it was like a Mike's Hard Lemonade, which is like a malt drink, and it's a completely different experience than like the light, crisp, refreshing drink that I was making. And so I was like, well, I got to just make this. And so that was a huge part of it was being able to just see know what I wanted, and then being able to execute on it, getting all those pieces together, to those puzzle pieces that come together to make it actually a functioning product, a realistic business. And um, we got a lot of momentum going and traction for that. But then the limiting factor was basically I was talking to investors trying to raise money for it. And, they kept asking me the same question. They're like, if it's such a great idea, how come it doesn't exist already? And I was like, well, if you look at the trends, it's going to exist, right? These trends are premiumization and convenience. Like this is where the market's going. And, but at the same time, it's like yeah, I see so many other people on LinkedIn, for example, saying like, competition is good. And like, they're right to some extent. It's validation. But at the same time, what was the competition for, the automobile before that? It was the horse. And so like, you know,
Exactly.
and if you, and Henry Ford even said, if I asked the customer what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
But that's the thing. Like, that's the whole thing, dude. And you're so good at this, from what I understand. It's like to not seek the validation, but more so just know within yourself that this is something that you think is needed, because it sounds like, because you said it's products or services that you feel like you would want. So it's kind of like this logic that's quite simple. But like, I think most people are afraid of this, is to just kind of trust your own gut and just be like, well, I would like this. So there must be someone out there who would want it. Like, do you know what I mean? I mean, this is my very
100%.
non-business mind, but like very like simple distillation of what you said, because I'm struggling actually with this, and I wanted to ask you for advice as well here. Is like, I often have this thing of like, yeah, who am I to do that? I don't know. Can I do that? And there's always people who are better at this, right? So, and it really took me like a lot of mental like cleaning up to understand that, like, yeah, there might always be people who are better at this specific thing, but like I still have a place in the world because of who I am and the specific kind of twist or the specific thing that I bring to the table, which is me. So I mean, that's kind of how I interpret as well what you're saying, but it sounds like you're really good at like having this gut feeling and just knowing that, just this knowing, I guess, of what you're doing is valuable. How
Yeah,
do
I
you
think
deal with that
a lot of
when
it
people are
is
questioning?
that self-confidence. A lot of it is the resilience. A lot of it is persuasion, right? When we like, there's always going to be people that push back, whether they're inside our own heads or outside. There's always going to be voices pushing back. And I think with my experiences that I've had, um, I just have a lot higher tolerance for that. Like, I'm okay with it. Um, these people have been wrong before. Like, what do they know? uh, you know,
I love that.
And that's another thing
But
is
where
like,
does that
I
come
would
from?
never, well, I think a lot of it's just experience. So like, I would never take advice from someone about something that they're not better than me at. So if, if someone's better than me at something, then I'll definitely listen to what they have to say about that subject. Now, if they're better than me at one thing, thing A, I'm not going to listen to them on thing B. Like, it's just, unless they're better than me at that too, which is totally possible and likely. But like, that's kind of the threshold that I use is like, if for example, someone's judging my ideas, the filter that I look at that through is like, well, what ideas have you had that you've executed on? What's your track record? And if it's not better than mine, then I'm just going to completely discount it.
Oh my God, I love that how you said that. I literally said that in one of the episodes to someone, and I said, like, you never listen to your parents, except your parents are cooler than you are. They're the coolest people and you want to
Yeah.
be like them. Or why would you listen to someone's advice on something if they haven't done that thing that but you basically judge yourself to be amazing or whatever it is. Like, does that make sense? Like if someone is critiquing you, but you actually don't look up to them in any way, or they haven't done this specific, a cool idea themselves or whatever, right? As an entrepreneur and you have an idea of a product or a service, like, why would you? It's so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like
I
all
think,
over
I,
the
I think a
place.
great, I think a great illustration of that point that a lot of people can understand is like, you wouldn't take nutrition and fitness advice from someone who is like wildly out of shape. Right. Like,
Exactly. Exactly. And also, and I think this is interesting. I mean, what is it like? Don't go to the going to the hardware store for milk. That's another thing. Maybe you just have the wrong people and they might not value that, but another person might need exactly what you have to offer and see the value. But going back to that, not being afraid of being judged or this like, I guess, self-confidence that you have. Do you think that being homeless and everything you went through and being in the military and then moving to a different country, do you think all of these things um, are a part of why you are that way and why you're so self-confident and just kind of,
yeah.
because it seems like
Uh,
you're kind of stepping out of the mainstream a bit.
yeah, I think they do have to do with it. And the reason is because kind of like what we started with, how easy it is to start over. And also, like, if you've already experienced something, your fear of that thing is a lot lower. Like, I've already managed that. I've already gone through it. I've already handled that. So I know that if it does happen again, then I can do it again. So for people that, you know, they don't want to risk their job because like, then what if I can't find another one? What if I'm homeless? Because like, that's a big unknown, right? Facing the unknown is a lot harder and more difficult than facing things you've already done before, right? Um, so I think that has a lot to do with it. Like, what's the worst case scenario? Like, I've already kind of done all that. So,
Yeah, you've been in the trenches, in the hell, basically, of, I guess, also we talked about it yesterday a bit, but the loneliness that comes with being homeless or the being, I guess, feeling abandoned by people as well. And I think a lot of these fears that people have when they think about the unknown, they don't actually know what exactly they're fearing there. But I think if people would look deep enough, they would see, maybe it's the loneliness, maybe it's the being completely left to my own devices or whatever. But it's so fascinating. Like, I love having this conversation with you. That's why I'm like interrupting you every 2 seconds. I can already see comments being like, shut up, let him talk. So basically, so then you did the law school thing. You're like, I'm not going to be an attorney. And now I have this toolkit. How did you went into the cannabis industry?
yeah. So that's a good story too. So I was actually an early Bitcoin investor. Um, I got in
What?
really, yeah, I got
That's so
in at like $200. That I actually used like student loans to buy Bitcoin. Um, and
goodness.
and then right after I graduated from law school, I with a couple friends, and none of us had experience in the industry. None of us had experience doing like retail or like any relevant experience at all. But we like got some money together. I cashed out some Bitcoin and we bought a dispensary in downtown LA. And this was like right in the transition from it going from medical to recreational. And so there's like this whole licensing coming down, and I'm thinking that, I'm a lawyer, I can like, navigate this. Um, but we ended up like just paying rent on an empty space for, it was operating when we came in, but then we were trying to be really compliant, so we like shut it down. Um, and then paying rent on a place that was empty for like a year, and just drained a lot of resources. Um, and at the same time, I was like, very problem oriented, and so I'm like, well, if I'm already navigating all this for myself, I might as well do that for other people. So I actually started a law firm focused on emerging industries, which is both cryptocurrency and cannabis, um, helping other people kind of do the same thing. And then from there, I actually met my wife at a cannabis event. Um,
What? That's so
yeah, yeah.
cool.
And then from there, like, so I had like a cannabis law firm, I had a retail store, and then my wife was one of the most accomplished sales people in the industry. So she brought one of the biggest names in cannabis, brass knuckles, to market back in 2016, 2017. She did like $30 million in sales for them, opened up their whole Northern California market. And so from there, I basically partnered up with her to turn her skill set into a business. We built several distribution companies, sales agencies. We did over 150 million in sales for brand partners, took like 75 brands to market. But it's still like a very immature industry. And, one reason that we focus on the kind of that distribution channel is that there wasn't really anyone before things went recreational that had handled that, because in the medical days, it was like the kind of normal operating procedure was that someone would show up to a dispensary with a backpack full of products, and they were called like the Backpack Boys. There's actually a brand in retail now that's riffing off of that legacy. Yeah. But show up with a backpack full of products, show them to them. If they want some, they'd buy it. Um, and this is still B2B. But there wasn't really anything formalized. And then with the new regulations, they kind of mandated this middlemanning through the distribution channels. And so I was like, well, no one in the industry has better experience than me, so why not me? And then at the same time, I was also partnered with, someone that was extremely successful in that area, with my wife. And so, we did built several distribution companies, some of them like to spec for clients and like a consulting type role. Others we built for ourselves. We went in with like a partnership with existing license holders. And then we kind of transitioned to purely a sales agency, because the distribution was already like very competitive. There was a lot of players out there, and they were like suicidal with their business practices, because they would just underprice their competitors no matter how unprofitable it was for them. I'm like, what's your guys'
My
like long-term
God.
vision here? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and so actually we've seen like a huge blow up in the last few years in that sector of the cannabis industry. There's been like all of the biggest um, distributors have gone under, like Indus, Herbal. They all went under, and now there's
Wow.
a couple left. But we're just like, okay, we're just going to focus on the sales side. You guys can figure out your distribution however you want, as far as like the physical movement of the product. And then that also allows us to not be plant touching. So then we're not subject to the, the tax implications, because basically the 280E in the US is the IRS code section that says that if you're doing something federally illegal, you can't take ordinary business deductions. So like all your taxes are on gross instead of net. Um, and so
Wow.
we're like, okay, well, let's just not be subject to that, not be plant touching. We'll just be informational and relational, handle these sales relationships, um, and kind of avoid that whole morass. And so from there, yeah. So, but again, it's still like a relatively immature industry. So we were actually owed like over $750,000 in commissions that we never got, and we ended up, kind of like leaving the industry for a year. And I took an attorney job at my sister's in-laws firm, and that lasted less than a year. I could not do it. It was very much like an assembly line type law firm where I was just doing default judgments, and so like all the other stuff in the case had already happened, and then like I just did my little role, and then it went on,
So
and
that
now
was not
mine
for
was,
you. That's kind of like a 9 to 5,
yeah.
no?
Yeah, I did not like it, did not stick around very long.
Explain just to a little bit. I want to know here because I haven't heard you talk about this yet. We know you have an entrepreneurial mind. It's just in your nature. So I can see how the 9 to 5 or like a normal job or working for someone else or something or doing something very repetitive could be very frustrating. But can you tell me what was the most painful part about that?
I mean, that you really hit the nail on the head, was like kind of just the repetition. I was doing basically the same form type drafting for every client every day. Um, it wasn't like a ton of work, but it was also not intellectually stimulating at all. It's just basically changing the names and like making a few changes to the fact patterns to make it conform with what's actually happening in that case. But I mean, this firm was very focused on a specific area of law, which was disability law. And so all of these were like, they were like all like, okay, this store didn't have aisles wide enough for someone with a wheelchair to get through, or they didn't have like a ramp, or they didn't have like disabled parking. And so there was like those three things that just over and over and over.
God.
And for like the same clients, because they basically would just go around and go places. And if they ran into an issue, they just call up the firm, be like, I got another one for you.
God, I mean, like, oh God. Okay, so you did that for a while, and then you were like, I can't do this. You
Yeah.
said you didn't even last a year.
No, I did not last a year.
I love that. And then did you go back into the cannabis industry?
Yeah. So we actually, because of our experiences before, we retooled our business model, kind of like, okay, well, we've already proven our worth. We don't need to like do everything on commission on the back end. So we changed our business model to where we have like a minimum commission that's paid up front, and then any commissions owed at the end of the month are paid then. But that's really helped us, and it's also helped with like the client relationships, because it's crazy how the psychological impact of paying someone makes you appreciate them more. So like
Oh my
when
God.
they when we would do all this work for someone and they didn't pay us, they just felt like they hit the jackpot or something. Um, but then when they actually pay for it, then they're like, oh wow, this person's working hard. They're doing this for me, and there's just like a lot more. Um, it's a stronger psychological relationship than someone you're not paying or paying, after the fact.
But
So
but
we've had a lot more. We actually still run that business in the
oh,
U.S.
but sorry, yeah, like you always drop like a gold mine of things that I want to like hone into. But the thing with the if you do something for someone, and let's say it's the same service, same thing, parallel reality, and one person charges $200 and the other one charges $2,000, but they're doing the same job. How do you think that influences the value that the person on the receiving end feels.
Yeah, I think the perception of value is always going to be higher the more you pay. Um, and I don't know why, because I'm not personally wired that way, but for like virtually everyone we've worked with, that's been the case. And I've also seen that a lot of other kind of salespeople talk about that like the more someone pays for a service, the more they value it. And I don't know how much of that is just like sunk cost fallacy or but the perception of value is real. And I
Yes.
highly encourage anyone that if they're struggling with getting paid, then just charge more.
Whoa, guys, you heard it here. That's a strategy. I have a little theory on that as well, which I often find myself, and I don't know if I'm the fool here, but okay, like if I see something and I think it's super ugly, like let's say fashion or something, and I'm like, this is so ugly. And then I see the price tag is super high. I'm like, oh wait, but they're probably a genius who understands. Do you know what I mean? Like
I must be missing something. Yeah.
I must
Yeah.
be missing something. So
Yeah.
it does this thing where it makes you question yourself. It makes you think that the other person must know something you don't know. That's why it looks the way it does. You know, it's like if I tell someone a Ferrari is visually ugly, people will say I'm a hater. You know, but
Yeah.
like it doesn't really matter, right? In the end, it doesn't matter. Everyone decides for themselves. But I find myself being like influenced that way. Like yesterday, I saw this artwork. This is so crazy. I have to tell you about this. It was a watch, like a clock. Sorry, it was a clock, and it was purposefully made to be hard to read. So like it was a bit like wobbly, and it was a bit like there was no numbers on it, but it still showed the real time. But it was an artwork to make people forget time or something. Okay, so that was the concept. I kind of liked it, but the piece in and of itself was so simple. There was nothing to it. So I often think that about art, right? It's like there's a famous painting as well. I forgot the name. Don't know who. Sorry, guys. Look it up. But it was like a painting on canvas, and it was just white. Someone just painted white on white. Okay, that's it. And then, you know, people were like, that's so shit. Everyone could do that. Yeah, but you didn't. You didn't do it. And this person
Yeah.
actually sat down and they did it. And they found a way to make millions of whatever, a lot of money with that stuff. Okay. With painting white paint on a white canvas. I mean, it's kind of the audacity of it all. Sometimes I think it's the audacity. You just have to have the audacity to have it. And this is what a lot of people call like, you know, oh yeah, it's just, you know, I often find myself, sorry, now I'm jumping on from one thing to another, but I often find myself in business situations where I feel like often guys don't come for me, but often I feel like the reason why women don't get paid as much as men is just because men have the audacity often. That I'm not saying that's a bad thing, right? But a lot of men, they kind of over they kind of think they can do more than they actually can do. And for women, it's kind of the opposite. They often think, I don't think I'm as good as this thing, and then they're actually amazing what they're doing. I forgot the English word of what that is, but I think a lot of men they're just like, yeah, I'm amazing at this thing, and then you actually look at the thing that they're producing, you're like, okay, it's kind of mid, you know, but I love your confidence, I guess. Yeah. So it's kind of like, I think this is something I'm struggling with, and like, sorry, now I'm gonna I wanted to ask you actually on advice for this thing, like I just started this podcast, you know, we talked a bit about this, and I'm really, really passionate about this thing. I think I'm creating value, which is entertainment and maybe education. Maybe someone can be helped through anything I say or anything my guests say, which would mean so much to me. And I sometimes read comments or get messages already with a little following. But so what would be your advice? Because sometimes I'm sitting here like, I'm not intelligent enough. My English is not good enough. Like that's the things I tell myself. Or, you know, whatever. My editing skills are still shit or whatever, you know, and I don't have the setup yet. I don't have the budget yet for a whole studio. You know, I would love to do this in person or whatever. Like, do you have any, from your entrepreneurial mindset, I don't know, do you have any advice for me specifically while I have you on here?
I think there's enough negativity and haters out there, you don't need to add to it yourself. I think, you know, focus more on what you are doing rather than like what you wish you could be doing. So I think, as long as you have the passion and the wherewithal, the resilience to keep doing what you're doing, you're putting yourself out there, you're talking to new people, you're, asking questions that are interesting to you. And you're already getting positive feedback. So I'll just really focus in on that. Um, I think, yeah, I think podcasting's like a difficult space to be in. Um, like I told you, like we tried that, and it didn't last very long. We got, I don't know, 10 or 12 episodes, not a ton of views. I don't think any of my hit 100, and like they were pretty interesting people, but I don't think we were asking interesting questions. I think we were just kind of like hoping that it would carry itself. So I think you're doing a lot better job at that than I did.
Thank you.
And it also
You
helps
know,
that you're not, actively smoking with with your guests, because that
oh, you guys
tends
smoked on
tends
the
to make it.
show.
Yeah, yeah. It made it sometimes it made it a little difficult to have a good conversation. I know one time I had my good friend on, who she's like a pretty big influencer at the time, and I got too high and I had to end the show early. It was looking back on it, I feel really bad because she flew out for it, and it wasn't a good look.
My
But I
God.
think you're doing a lot better than me.
Yeah, thank you for that. But, I heard actually now about podcasting real quick. I heard that 50% of 50% of people who have a podcast make it to episode 3. And then
Wow.
only, yeah, and then only, oh, dude, don't quote me on these numbers. Something like 80, 90 make it above 8. More than 80% don't make it above 8, episode 8 or something. So by episode, I think 10 or whatever, like most people already gave up, because I think most people do it for the sake of something. It's kind of with anything really. If you look at anything really, any project really, like I play the guitar, but not as good as you probably or whatever, because I don't have that crazy passion about it. I enjoy it sometimes, but I enjoy my nails more. I would like to have longer nails more than I would like to play. Like, for example, right? But that's a good example of, like, I think, prioritization. But for me,
Yeah.
what I do with a podcast, I really genuinely love the thing of it, like the meat of it all. Like, it's fun for me. I think
Yeah.
that's why I
Enjoying the
keep going.
process. Yeah. I think that's a great point, because we, according to your metrics, we're already like top 10% because we did like 10, 11 episodes, but it was not, yeah, it wasn't,
Yes.
we definitely didn't have that kind of approach that you do, where you're, really digging in, asking interesting, engaging questions. And it was, for us, it was more like just a public hangout.
Yeah, but you know what? There's a crazy lesson in that too. And which is, sorry, I'm going to go back to your story soon, but at one point, oh my God, the time. But what it is like, there's an interesting story, like an interesting value in this lesson, which is to just try things out, dude. You know how many people don't try things out, and we stop ourselves all the time? You could be the coolest. Like, people are like, I'm going to go to do pottery, and then they're like, huh, I didn't kind of like it. Maybe no, it's okay. You just tried it out. At least you tried it out. Most people don't try
Yeah.
anything out, and they're just in their mind already rejecting their own ideas. Maybe
Yeah.
that's
I think
something.
that's a great point, especially because we also have this idea that, like, if I don't have, for the pottery example, someone might obsess over the idea of like, I'm going to do pottery, and then they wait until they like, okay, I quit my job, I bought a pottery studio, like I went all in on this, and then they get in there and they're like, this sucks. So I think, yeah, you're definitely right. Like, try it in the easiest way you can, see if you like it,
Yeah.
and then like iterate from there. So build on what's working.
Yes, and I want your opinion as well on this take that I have, which is that people always find excuses with money. And they're like, I don't have the money to do that. I don't have the thing to. Do you have a phone? Yeah. Okay. Well, then you can record a video. Or do you? There's always a way. Like people are like, I can't travel. I don't have the money. Well, have you hitchhiked before? I mean, just as a crazy example, but like you can literally kind of make your way to something. I mean, there was this woman, right? She like traded herself to a house from like a clip or something. I mean, it took her like a year, but she traded and traded up, a product. And at one point, she ended up with a house. Like it's an interesting project, right? But that's
Yeah.
you can always find a way. And I love how you talk as an attorney or as someone who studied law. Also in many different industries, you have businesses, and you have this amazing background. And I think you always find a loophole. It seems.
Yeah, I try. I try. I try to find the kind of the best way forward. And I think you're right that like um we do make a lot of excuses. And I think it does come back to that fear or insecurity that like if I don't have everything I need to maximize my possibility of success, then I'm selling myself short or I'm not giving it a real chance. And so, yeah, there's definitely kind of that internal narrative that a lot of us have that like we let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Um,
Wow.
and, and that like, that the ideal world scenario can't be your starting point. And you're 100% right that you kind of just have to take whatever action you can, um, to move that forward. And yeah, that's definitely something I've lived in my life. I guess like I told you that, when I was 16, my goal was to go to UCLA law school. And, when I was 18, I was dropped out of high school. That kind of seemed like it was, less possible. but, but everything I did after that point was like on a path to that. So like I kept taking college courses at the community college. When I joined the Marine Corps, it's because I knew they would pay for college. They had the GI Bill, and they actually made it a lot better after I got in. And I also knew it would look good on resumes and applications that I had this period of service, and that the schools value experiential diversity where they can get it. And for so many of them that are just taking the freshman class directly from high school, the only place they get that kind of diversity is from the transfer classes. So I had, like a pretty good idea. I wouldn't say like a plan, but a pretty good idea about the path I was taking, and just taking those incremental actions all the way there. And a lot of times, like in the Marine Corps, when I was taking college classes off base, like it gave me so many other fringe benefits or extra privileges that, now I could go play concerts all over the island. I could stay out past midnight. I could drive a car. And those are things that, a solid 95+% of the Marines in my position just did not have access to.
Yeah, but also they just didn't try. So a lot of people just don't try. Like guys, whoever's listening, I hope you take at least this from this episode, is that try it out, find a way. If there's something you want to try out, you don't even have to tell anybody. Maybe it's embarrassing. Maybe you don't want to feel the pressure. Just try it out in secret, okay? Or someone that you trust. It doesn't matter. Just do it. And if you don't like it, it's okay. You'll find another thing. Because I think I wanted to talk a little bit about the school system with you, but we both kind of I have a hatred. Sorry, I don't want to put that into your mouth, but I hated the school system, and I was great at it, but I just think it destroys people's dreams, and we kind of get into the system more confused on who we really are. And I think this is one of the biggest issues, is that people don't know what to do.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that point. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is like lifelong education, lifelong learning. I don't think that looks like, following the treadmill of schools. Um, my own daughters, they're not in school. I homeschool them. because I agree with you that I feel like the education system and how they teach kids, especially in the US, I'm not sure how it was for you, but it's like I feel like they grind the joy of learning out of you. Like that's
Yeah.
the only way I can really put it. You know, the way one of my worst memories of school was like first grade having to do like these timed math problems. We'd have like a sheet of like 60 problems and you'd have like a minute to do all 60. And I'm in first grade. And like I just remember that was like the worst and it made me just really not like math. And I don't know what value that served. It didn't make me like, it was just like all the added pressure. It was definitely not something that was like, yeah, you know, I'm the best math doer in the 1 minute. Uh,
This is it's a perfect example what you just said of like how stupid the system is, how it values often like I don't know like uh quantity over quality or whatever you have to be like even math, right? Math is such an interesting concept. If we would give people a proper like introduction into what math can do, that doesn't mean everybody's going to be interested in it, but at least maybe it will pick up some people, the right people who are like, oh, that's actually something that interests me. Or, for example, I used to hate physics so much. And now as an adult, or since I'm 22, I think I'm reading up on like quantum physics. I met a lot of physicists in my life. I was like random friends with quantum physicists. I don't know how this happened. I like met quantum physicists randomly and they always told me, time isn't real. And so I like went into this whole thing, and I was like, this is so fascinating, dude. What? Like, and nobody talks about this. I think often people don't know how to tell a story. And I think this is an issue. Like a lot of educators have amazing knowledge, but they don't know how to put it in a way that's interesting or that can capture students. And yeah, I think
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that you kind of hit the core issue there with a lot of the education system is they've kind of abstracted everything in these individual subjects and they try to teach you them completely devoid of all the context that makes it interesting. You know, the math, you're just doing random math problems because they're on the piece of paper is way less interesting than figuring out like, oh, actually I could use this equation to figure this thing out in real life. Physics is a great example where it's actually kind of one of the places in math where you have to have context. You have to know like that there's an object and that it's moving. And like at that point, you just add a little tiny bit of detail. Now it's a car. Now it's, a baseball. Now it's whatever. And it becomes that much more interesting because it's not just completely abstracted away from all narrative, storytelling, context, whatever you want to call it, the reality of it, right? These are all
yeah.
things that work together. Your body is a biological system, but there's chemical processes. There's physics involved. There's math integrated into the whole world around us if you know like how to look for it. But I think by focusing on those abstractions and then just robbing the process of context, it's just like, yeah, it's almost dehumanizing.
It is dehumanizing. It's like, I don't want to be dramatic, but it's a little bit like modern slavery, what we do to children in schools. It's like, you have to be here from 8 to whatever. Now it's like 5 p.m., man. Like when I was young, it was from 8 to 1 p.m. I had school. I don't know, since when did schools go like 9 to 5? What is happening? I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
Japan's
absolute.
definitely the worst at that.
Yes. And I used to be a teacher in a kindergarten, and it's definitely wing clipping, it's like
Yeah.
plucking the feathers of children. But okay, I wanted to ask you another thing, which is that, with your diverse experience, life experience, and now having, you know, now I guess you have a family now, you have multiple businesses now, you're settled in Japan. I think, would you agree that you're happier now?
Uh, that's a good question. I don't know if happiness is the right kind of metric. I think it's like I have a lot of fulfillment and engagement across a lot of different aspects of life. I do things that are intellectually stimulating, that are difficult, both like physically, emotionally, or intellectually. Um, I get a lot of, reward and validation from my kids, from what I do for work, being able to feel like, um, that you're making a difference, that you're changing things for the better, and that you're not just, trudging along on a conveyor belt.
Yeah, and do you feel like this your specific life experience of the contrast that you've been through, the extreme contrast, I mean, even just monetary wise, and then now having a family, but then for at one point in your life feeling, I guess, more lonely or alone in life, do you feel like that contrast adds to the basically the can do you feel like you can feel the happiness or the, I guess, the joy of things or the engagement of things or the fulfillment more because you've had that difficult experience before?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that it's definitely a question of like appreciation. Um, so I can appreciate um, what I'm going through now more, given the context of where I've been. Also, like, it's just being human. It's something you have to like continuously remind yourself of too. So that's one of the reasons I reached out to you, is like I've done a lot of things in my life, and uh, being able to talk about it and articulate it is one way that I can actually remind myself. Um, and so that's something that I wanted to do, to just, explore the context a little bit more, have some appreciation for that. And then, at the same time, I think one of the greatest um, rewards of having this wide variety of experience is that I have I'm pretty good at communicating and persuading with people at whatever level they are at. So I've done high level sales where it's like executive level, where we're talking to business owners, CEOs, and stuff like that, about their needs, and communicating the value proposition and persuading them on that front. I've done high level negotiations. I've done and more on the ground stuff, like talking with coworkers, talking with just people on the street about their problems, and communicating with people kind of across the spectrum of human experience. Because I've got a wide variety of experiences that I've been through, and so I don't pretend to know what someone else has gone through, but I think there's a good chance that I can kind of meet them on their level.
Yeah, you've been there. It's fascinating. I mean, oh my God, Ian, there's so many things that I wanted to ask you, but the time I'm just um okay, I have a rapid fire thing in the
Okay.
end. So before I ask you the rapid fire questions, which are going to be quite fast, but before that I want to ask you one more thing. Okay, yeah, I guess I want to ask you, what does success mean to you now compared to 10 years ago, for example?
I think that success means like continuous improvement. It means, and then so you just kind of have to qualify success in what, or what are you being successful at? Um, so for me, success right now is focused very much on like my daughter, my 6-year old is like really loves playing chess. She's got a great chess tutor back in the US, and I play chess with her. And so like success for me is honestly when she beats me at chess. And she's right now she's doing pretty good. She beats me maybe about 30-40% of the time. She's really, yeah, she's really sharp. She's really on it. And I don't go easy on her. I don't let her win. But she's really good. And so seeing her progress there, and seeing her passion, and seeing her follow through with that. She also, did jujitsu and gymnastics and a lot of cool stuff when we were in the States. We're in a Tommy right now, so there's not like a ton of activities for her, but I know she was asking me to get back into those sort of things. So I'm really just focused on like how I can deliver the best quality of life for my kids, um, and do it on a different uh, level than I was able to have as a kid, because my childhood was very much focused around like going to school. And so I think that by homeschooling her and having that different emphasis, that it's just like a step change in quality of life and satisfaction that I really enjoy being a part of.
That's just wonderful. I love that so much. And I think I don't have children, but it seems like it always changes completely the trajectory of a person's life and the way that they view things. I think it can also bring up traumatizing stuff from your own childhood and realizing, oh, this is something I'm going to do completely differently. Yeah, but it sounds wonderful.
No, yeah, it's
um,
great. There's so much fun. I wish I could. Right now, I'm commuting to Tokyo 5 days a week, so it's a little harder to spend time. But they're great, and even when they go crazy, which they do often.
I love that so much. I love children so much. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And then, well, for the last part now, before we stop, I want to ask you rapid fire questions. So these are five questions. I just want you to basically answer very shortly the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready? Okay. So, uh, what is the most underrated album that everyone should listen to?
Oh, um, the first thing that comes to mind is the collaboration album between Michael Ackerfeld and Steven Wilson. Um, the name is, it's funny because it's the name of the group is the name of the album and is also the name of like the best song. Yes, okay. It's called Storm Corrosion, the collaboration album between Michael Ackerfeld and Steven Wilson. Really cool, interesting stuff. Another great one that I've gotten into recently is Long Season by the Japanese band Fishman. I think those two are pretty high on my list. They're both kind of really like almost ambient type records that you can just have and enjoy and let it soak into you. But explores really cool themes and really has like a evolving musical um, approach that I
Lovely.
really appreciate as a musician and as an artist.
Amazing. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a music question too. That's why, but I'm going to look that up. Thank you so much. And then the second question is, what is the biggest risk that you think you've ever taken?
Moving to Japan to start a business.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We know it's
With
not
a
easy.
family, yeah. Basically selling everything and moving here, and I mean we still have some of a lifeline with the US based business, but yeah, that's definitely, bringing kids with you, doing something like that. I think um kind of sight unseen, buying multiple properties as soon as you land and running a property management business, and yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you came back basically, we forgot to mention that, but you came back 7 months ago, yeah?
Yep, been here since March. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's amazing. And then my third question is, what's the worst advice that you've ever gotten?
Oh, can think of a lot of bad advice. I think the worst advice is probably just I guess I have like the counter to the bad advice, which is unconventional success is impossible if you're following conventional wisdom. So just the conventional wisdom, just across the board, whatever kind of it's just all bad advice.
I love that. Well, because the next question will be, what's the best advice that someone has ever given you?
The best advice someone's ever given me is probably um, to keep at it, to believe in what you're doing, and to you know march to your own drummer, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that. And then the last one is, if there was one message that you could like send across to the whole world, what would you say?
Like, you only live once, so live it on your terms.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much, Ian. It was wonderful to have you on. I love the
Thank you,
conversation.
Janum.
I'm so sorry to like jump all over the place.
No, it was a lot of fun. Thanks, Janum.
Thank you
I
so much.
enjoyed it.
And thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you like this conversation, please subscribe to the channel, and I would love your opinions in the comment section. Please don't be mean, okay? Be kind, guys. I'm still new to this, and I have my wonderful guests here, so I feel also a bit of responsibility for everyone who's on the show, obviously. So please be kind, but I do welcome all kinds of opinions, and I would love to comment back in the comment section. And I still have the I can still do that because it's still a small channel. So thank you so much, guys, for listening, and we'll see, or you will see me. I will sadly not see you yet, but you will see me next week. Thank you. Bye.